Hello, everyone. I'm JVL here with my colleague at the Bulwark, A.B. Stoddard, the Mistress of Darkness, and everything is terrible. It is Tuesday, May 28th. We are at closing arguments on the trial. It's not really the trial of the century. Maybe not even the trial of the day. Trial of the year, maybe. The Manhattan Stormy Daniels election fraud case. And A.B., what are your thoughts?
So I tend to not trust myself when I'm listening to the anchors belch out what they're hearing in their ear from the courtroom. I tend to just trust the experts on the panels. And they've thrown me this way and that. So for me, it feels suspenseful. Throughout this trial, I've been told this is such a weak case. I've been told the evidence is overwhelming. I've been told so many different things. I've been spun around. And so I am kind of on pins and needles. Obviously, politically, we care about a hung jury or an acquittal. It would be a big deal for Trump. We have also soberly and humbly accepted that a conviction is not likely to really help President Biden and really injure Trump. But I do know that as of sitting down to tape, Todd Blanche was not giving it his best, apparently, or he wasn't up to the task for closing. He was getting some bad reviews. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, the prosecution gets to go last. Former President Trump, either just found out about this or decided to moan about it over the weekend. But the prosecution will do some, I think they will be advantaged by the fact that Todd Blanche's closing was quite meandering and not great. It's not exactly completely over, but sounds like they said things like buried the lead and lost the jurors' attention and just not really making a good. So closing is important. I'm also told by these experts that people often make their mind up in the jury box at opening statements. So I am on the edge of my seat. I really am.
Anybody who's watched America for the last 7 years, totally unsurprised by that, right? These are our people.
Yeah.
These are the people, the great and good American people.
What do you expect?
Well, let me sell you on some optimism.
I need it.
I believe that, so we've had a piece coming from our colleague Mark Caputo later on today about Trump worlds, the inside, what their view of the trial is. And they all view acquittal as simply absolutely impossible. That's like, there's a better chance of Trump turning into an elephant than there is of the jury acquitting him. Their hopes are all pinned on a single juror who they have been like tea leaf reading over his facial expressions and his body language to hope that he might hold out and give them a hung jury. But then also they're all ready to go on a conviction. So they've got their email fundraising appeals set up. They've got their merchandise set up. They've reached I think Mark has this line in the piece about how, even the hung jury thing is basically the bargaining stage.
Yeah.
And so I mean, everything I've read of the evidence presented to the jury makes it seem like the prosecution made its case. And this case was nowhere near as weak as advertised. I don't know if you remember, but when this first indictment was handed down, people at the Bulwark, you think I even wrote something about this. I was like, oh gosh, I really wish we had gotten the other case. The other cases were more serious and the other cases were tougher. And it turns out this is the only case we're going to get before the election. And the case was quite strong. The evidence was overwhelming. There was tons of evidence. And thank God we had it. Good on Alvin Bragg for doing this. Because without this, we get nothing. We'd have just 3 trials all out there in various states of disarray with Eileen Cannon running roughshod over things in Florida and the Supreme Court stepping in to put its thumb on the scale to make sure that the other, very serious cases didn't get heard. I don't know. This is not a JVL is always right prediction, but I think there's a slightly better than 50-50 chance that he gets convicted of this.
Then where do we go?
I mean, look, since Trump said that he didn't like John McCain because he preferred, soldiers who weren't captured, I've been thinking, well, maybe this is the tipping point. And so I've stopped. Like, I don't, I just assume there is no bottom, there is no tipping point. But on the other hand, the thing about tipping points is you don't ever see them coming. Right?
Absolutely
because you say, like, we've just dropped 5 tons of straw on the balance board. Why would we think that the next blade of straw is going to be the thing to do it? Maybe. I don't know.
And
are people really going to, at a moment when the economy is great, and we've got a president who's like doing presidenting stuff, like going to West Point for commencement and heading over to Normandy to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. The economy is fantastic. Everybody has a job. Wages are outpacing inflation. That's the moment when people are going to be like, let's roll the dice on this guy who has now been a convicted felon and whose actions led to 1 million dead Americans during COVID. Sure. It's just hard to understand how that would be.
I agree with you that you don't see tipping points coming in after 9 years of Trumpism. It would make sense that it would surprise us, that it would be the shocking one that we didn't expect.
Yeah.
Because they've known he's been a criminal now. I mean, most of us watching him have known all along he was a criminal. But the American voters have been told since last June, right? When did they start penalizing? Last spring. So it went to 91, then it was cut back to 88 criminal charges. And then he's been the polling leader. So the idea to them that suddenly he is officially a criminal, it's not crazy to imagine it could change their minds about electing him president. That's not crazy. And
let me say this, A.B. The idea isn't that this is a tipping point because it convinces all of MAGA to run away from Trump.
Right,
that's not going to happen.
They're going to send him their last thing from their house because they've already given him all their money. They will
do that.
It's going to be...
But it could be a tipping point for a whole bunch of like soft-leaning Democratic voters who have decided they're disgruntled with Biden, right? It could be a tipping point for a bunch of progressives who, up until last week, were really upset about the Gaza Strip, right? And it could be a tipping point for a bunch of the double doubters that Sarah calls them, that she talks to in her focus group. So people who voted for Trump in 2016, then voted for Biden in 2020, and now are backsliding. And what she's seen is, again, not polling, it's a focus group, but a majority of them are basically sticking with Biden, but there is some erosion. So maybe this pulls some of those people back on side. And I think it's not crazy to think that this helps at the margins for Biden.
I'm going to have to go with that.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I'm looking for a miracle, so I'll take that.
The Biden campaign is doing an event outside the courthouse today. You were a little bit dismayed about this?
Yeah, out of nowhere. And really, obviously, we have watched the Biden campaign, the president, the vice president, cabinet members, surrogates, stay as far away from the topic of this trial and this trial as possible. And out of nowhere today, some Biden campaign officials set up like a press event outside the courthouse. And they show up with Robert De Niro, who's a big Biden fan, huge, very compelling Trump critic, and Officer Michael Fanone and Officer Harry Dunn, who became quite famous as among the most famous police officers who battled the insurrectionists on January 6th. And they are outside the courthouse on the day the closing arguments start. No one has been anywhere near this. And they chose today to come and start talking about how Trump is going to govern like an autocrat and he'll never leave office, Robert De Niro assured us. And it's not that I disagree with anything that they said, but it was it seemed very strange and tone deaf and desperate and just out of left field. And of course, Republicans, the whole Trump world jumped on Twitter to say, you thought these were the Biden trials. We told you that they were. And here they are coming to just own it. And so I think it didn't work out the way they had planned.
Yeah. I wonder if something like this is just done as a way to try to trigger Trump. Get Trump really upset. So maybe. I don't know. I don't think this matters ultimately much one way or the other. Although if it triggered Trump into an outburst and got him upset, maybe it would. But it's not encouraging.
No.
I don't think this moves the needle, but the thinking behind it worries me.
I would agree with you. So again, I think Michael Fanone and Harry Dunn and some other January 6 officers are supposed to be in the coming weeks and months going to battleground states to campaign for President Biden, which I think is a great idea. The thinking, as you say, behind today, I don't really know. I think that back to our previous point, actually, the idea of triggering outbursts is it'll interesting to watch Trump, because though he will run up the fundraising machine if he gets convicted, JVL, I think it also is going to trigger some strange behavior, and that could be beneficial.
Yeah, because we need some help.
Yep.
We've got some econ stuff coming out. Consumer confidence. The consumer confidence sentiment right now is running 27% behind what the objective economic conditions say it should be. So this is a thing that economists started putting together over the last 4 years as they realized that people were walking around in consumer confidence surveys talking about it like it was 2008, like it was, the fall of 2008 with the Great Recession happening and, every, 9% unemployment and Lehman Brothers failing and stuff. And that's so far from reality. Nobody could quite figure out what was going. So a bunch of the economists sat around and said, okay, well, based on history leading up to 2020, if you put all of the just sort of objective economic data in, what should the consumer confidence numbers look like? And the answer is that under Trump, it tracked exactly. Like it was consumer confidence numbers were right where the data said they should be the entire time. And under Biden, it's been 27% below. That's great. Super great.
Truly astonishing. Even though we've now been talking for a year and a half about a vibe session and people believing that we're heading into recession. And there was a Harris Guardian poll out last week showing that more than 50% of the country believes we're in recession. 49% of us believe that unemployment is at a 50-year high instead of a 50-year low.
The lowest sustained level it's been.
Yeah. And so
it's amazing.
But looking at this data that you're talking about, that they calculated from the misery index and historical economic conditions, this is crazy. The 2008 November crater differential was 39 points and negative 39. And in May of 2023, what the economy was actually doing versus what people thought it was doing was a whole 35 points. And then it's 27% average. That is, I just don't know. I mean, we've talked so many times about the actual data points that Joe Biden owns in his record. Record oil exports, record small business creation, record job creation, all this stuff.
Record boat sales. That's the one I like.
And we can't drive it home. And it's so frustrating because even though in this economist that originally sent out this information was making the case that the media really, has a responsibility to report this stuff out. I don't know how you tell Americans, in a CNN package, that things are getting better. And what do you find, ma and pa on the street? And they say, borrowing costs are great now. This is awesome.
Maybe you just have somebody like Dave Chappelle come on screen and just start berating, straight to camera, just berating the people for, why are you so stupid?
Yeah.
Do you think that might work?
Well, in some ways.
Sarah would not like that.
I know. I just, yeah, I don't, it's a lesson on their information gathering and information collecting. And I have no idea how to approach that. But you have talked about how voters will say their own economic conditions are pretty okay. Yeah. And in their own district or state, pretty good, sometimes great. And then say the national economy is at October 2008. So there's got to be a way in to say why, when you think it's okay, do you see, or you think your school is okay, why do you see everything else as so poisoned? I mean, there's got to be a way in, but I don't know, with 5 months left in a campaign that's going to literally make or break the constitutional order that we can start to face this problem. It's so overwhelming.
I want to close by going extra dark. Are you ready? I'm going to read to you from the Washington Post, a piece titled "Trump's Unprecedented Trial is Unremarkable for Some Swing Voters." Samantha Rosnowski, a former Trump supporter who recoiled from his pivotal role in overturning Roe v. Wade, was surprised to learn that Trump can continue running for president if he is convicted or sentenced to jail. But she did not think a conviction would change her calculus for November, and said she is not preoccupied with Trump's trial or its tawdry allegations. I'm sorry. The allegations aren't tawdry. The allegations are that he committed electoral fraud. That's what's important. That's what's germane, not the Stormy Daniels. I'm sorry. He's a man. Please, A.B., give me credit for my restraint. I'm not doing any accents.
I'm
not doing any voices.
I know. And I'm not screaming.
He's a man, 39-year-old Rosnowski said of Trump outside a tiny Baptist church where she had just emerged from Sunday services with her daughters. What he did in his marriage is between him and his wife. She said she is just as sour on Biden and might sit things out.
What?
Standing beside her, 18-year-old Lacey Rosnowski said she hadn't seen anything about the trial on TikTok, but she did remember hearing the false claim that Biden was one of the first presidents to fail a random test of his ability to recite the alphabet. And so that's why Lacey isn't going to vote for him. Yeah. That didn't happen, by the way. That is not a thing that happened.
Yeah.
But that's where we are. And I want to close with something. So Sarah let me onto the focus group again.
I heard.
Huge mistake on her part.
Okay.
And we taped the show last week. I think it's going to run this coming Saturday, and I came to play.
I cannot wait.
But there was a woman who, I believe she was a Trump 2016, Biden 2020 voter, who, when asked about what a Trump second term would look like. Now, here I'm paraphrasing, I'm sorry, but you can get the full thing on the focus group with Sarah Longwell and me coming this weekend. Go pay attention to it. Who talked about how he wants to be a dictator and it would be terrible, the things he would do, and all he wants to do is retribution against his enemies, and it's really bad. And then she said, but part of me kind of wants to see what it would look like.
Yeah.
What do you do with that, A.B.?
I am.
Because this is like somebody who's like, I mean, sure, it'd be terrible if that house burned down. But I mean, have you ever seen a house on fire? It might be cool to see, right?
This is the lure of the Trump show. And now, actually, having read The Mom outside of Sunday services, I've decided that if he gets convicted, we're going to go right back to the top of the show, and we're going pessimist. If he gets convicted, people are going to think that he was convicted of cheating on his wife with a porn star and not committing a crime. Okay? So that's where we are. But yeah, the Trump show and the lure of watching a car wreck cannot be discounted from people's calculations. If that woman knew she is not one of the low to no information voters who actually has no idea about the retribution threats, about the plans that he has via Project 2025 that actually maybe, just whatever, is a 23-year-old and can't remember. This person in the focus group knew enough to know he was dangerous. I still said that. I can't.
Yup. And
sleep between now and November 5.
I just look at these things, and if there's any comfort, if there's any solace for us, A.B., this could only happen in a country that deserves it and wants it. No one's getting tricked. Nobody's getting hoodwinked or swindled. Nobody thinks they're, I don't know, the guy seems totally on the level. I didn't realize he was a crook. Everything's out there. Everybody knows. Everybody has seen already a much worse version than anybody imagined in 2016, right? In 2016, if I had said 1 million Americans are going to die because of this guy's incompetence, you would have been like, okay, hold on there, Mr. TDS.
I know.
That's a little, right?
I know.
We've seen it all.
No, and I urge everyone to read the very darkest of all triads from Friday. Really, it was Friday, right? It was the start of the holiday weekend, so it might have been missed. Was it Friday?
I don't even remember. What did I write?
It was how Trump didn't change us, he revealed us.
Oh, yeah.
And it is really important. Like the million deaths.
That's the question. Yeah. So
right? The deliberate not telling us the truth about COVID so it could spread and kill everyone. That's not what, right? The average voter is probably taken to the equation that their church was closed for 6 weeks. So, and at the same time, we do discuss this, right? Like America deserves what it asks for. But I will be haunted until the election and then after by the fact that there are voters who don't know things that might be able in some crazy way on TikTok or some other way to be informed about these things. There are, and that's what's scary, right? You cannot have a democracy without an informed citizenry. And I know we're probably past the point. But I keep thinking with a few more billions, maybe we could do some more informing in just the right places. I don't know. It's terrifying.
Good luck, America.